Good evening and welcome to this special encore program marking 2 years since October 7th, Faith, Education, and the Jewish Spirit, a program of ILTV and Aish. I'm Maayan Hoffman and I'll be your moderator tonight. As we mark 2 years since the tragic events of October 7th, we turn to the spiritual and educational dimensions of the Jewish response, the inner strength, unity, and purpose that have guided our people through darkness. In this special conversation with 3 Aish experts, we explore how faith, learning, and leadership are shaping the next chapter of Jewish life in Israel and around the world. How have Jewish education and engagement evolved since the war began? What are young Jews seeking today? And how can we bridge the divides that have surfaced within our global community? Joining us are 3 inspiring voices who are working every day to rekindle Jewish connection and resilience. I have with me Rabbi Steven Burg, CEO of Aish, Rabbi Daniel Rowe, Senior Educator and International Lecturer for Aish, and Shiffy Silverstone, an educator for Aish Aspire, a program of the Susanna and Evan Kaufman Institute for Women's Education, and a youth counselor. So I want to get started by talking to you about October 7th. I'm going to go one by one and just ask you for a quick sentiment. How has October 7th changed the level of desire for Jewish education, both online and in person? Let's talk about it in Israel or in Jerusalem specifically, but also around the world. Rabbi Burg, why don't you start?
Sure. I think, on October 7th, for all of us that were here in Israel when it happened, it was like a tidal wave hitting us. And we were very sad and trying to understand how to move forward. None of us realized the massive anti-Semitism that was going to follow. I think most of us felt we were victimized, and then people would understand that. And I think that what you saw, certainly in diaspora, and I think Israelis have seen around the world, is this flood of anti-Semitism. And on campus, which a lot of our students are on campus, and we talked to our students, and one of our students, in fact, wound up suing Harvard as a result. But you saw this anti-Semitism for people they had been friends with on October 6th. And all of a sudden on October 8th, their friends didn't want to talk to them. And so I think for a lot of them, and people that were not necessarily connected to the nationhood or the Jewish people, not connected to necessarily religion, all of a sudden were like, wait a minute, something's wrong here, something's off. And so I think for so many of them, it started a search. Like, what is going on here? And then, you start to realize that there has been 2,000 years of this, of us going through these kind of trials. And so I think for a lot of them, they started a search. And the good news and bad news is online. The bad news is there's so many people out there that can spew hate. The good news is there's so much good online. And for us at Aish, we do 1 million video views a day on social media. So we were literally right there. We had been working on this for years. October 7th happened, and we, I think it was, we generally were doing 7,000 or 8,000 followers a week. We jumped to 75,000 followers a week, and we started doing massive amounts because, again, people were just saying, what in the world's going on? So, okay, this is about the Jews. What's a Jew? And for so many, they just didn't know that. And that goes for our non-Jewish allies as well. They were also trying to figure, what's going on with these people? It doesn't make any sense. They got attacked, and now we're attacking them for getting attacked. And so I think that has caused, thankfully for us, even though we're still defending ourselves, but a lot of searching. And this is what we like to call truth seekers, right? If you can get through social media and you really want to know the truth, you're a truth seeker, you want to understand, and then you realize that there's a God. The Almighty exists, and what does He want us to do? What is our mission in life? And so I think that, thankfully, it's put them on a path that has been great. And we've seen tremendous growth in that area as we defend the Jewish people in Israel. But we've seen a real rekindling of a flame in so many Jews and, frankly, in so many of our allies as well.
Rabbi Rowe, do you feel the same way?
Very similar. I would say there was something shook, right? I think we still won't fully understand what it is, maybe for another 10 years. But something shook everybody. And just in those weeks afterwards, when all of a sudden all the things we'd fought about kind of melted away in insignificance, and all over the world you felt this unified Jewish spirit, and like people were getting on planes to go and serve their country, and it was just everywhere, and putting on tefillin, and it wasn't like in the conventional boxes of religion and politics. There was a soul that was awakening, and it's, yes, we're kind of moved back a little bit into the old ways, but there's something that's going to stay with us. It's very hard to fully classify, but it's real, and I don't think, in the good sense, we're ever going to go back to October 6th. The question is how we're going to harness this spirit and energy and move it forward, hopefully in a positive way, but I think it's moving by itself. Things are happening by themselves throughout the Jewish world.
And Shiffy?
So just to add, I thought it was fascinating that on the days after, even the weeks after, people from around the world wanted to be part of what we're going through over here. So usually, you come, you have a country that's at war, everyone's running away. But people were coming. People were coming on trips. They were coming for like a week just to do some charity, to go to different bases, to pack up food for soldiers, to help families. People wanted to be part of what we were going through over here, because it wasn't just Israel was at war. It was the Jewish people were experiencing something that was very, very big, and everyone wanted to be part of it in their own way. So even if, it wasn't somebody that can come and serve in the IDF, they were coming to Israel to serve, and do chesed and do charity. So, it was very interesting to see it from that direction, but I completely agree. It was a massive shift, and we're still feeling it till today.
So, Rabbi Burg, turning back to you, then what do you see as the next steps, the future for Jewish engagements after this groundswell? I mean, we're 2 years later. Does it still exist, and how do we move it forward?
Well, look, it's like surfing. Once you catch a wave, you need to keep going. And I think that's what we experienced, this wave. And what we need to do is there's a feeling that someone can have, and then you need to solidify that feeling. And the solidifying of that feeling needs to be a base in the Bible, a base in understanding Jewish wisdom, in understanding the writings of the rabbis. And these are writings that go back thousands of years. Literally, Judaism brought morality and ethics to the world. All the religions go back to Abraham, who started monotheism. And so we need young people today to really understand what these lessons were and understand that what you're being told online, first of all, is not necessarily true. A lot of the things are being pitched, but morality and ethics goes back to the Jewish people. The Jews that are being demonized today, wait a minute, we actually started all these religions, and you need to understand what that is. And so, as I said, we've been doing massive amounts on social media in terms of video views on TikTok and Instagram. For us, the next step, for example, at Aish, we're creating something called Aish U. We're getting accreditation, and we're going to a deeper dive of classes. Now that you're interested, you need to understand more, because as you understand more, then you can explain more to people and understand. People sometimes, we find with a lot of our young people, they want to defend Israel, they want to defend the Jewish people, but they don't know what to say. We must give them the tools of what to say to our enemies so that they can explain, this is why I'm a proud Jew. We feel this proudness, but it has to be much more than a feeling. It has to be, I know that the way of Israel and the way of the Jewish people is a great way to move forward.
And even though many polls are showing that young Jews certainly are reconnecting in ways that you're all describing, we also know that a vast majority of young Jews, certainly young non-religious Jews in the United States, are in many ways disconnecting from their faith as a result. They're actually standing in the protest lines against Israel because of what's happening in the U.S. So, Rabbi Burg, just to continue, can you tell me what we do with those Jews?
So, it's very fascinating. You saw, I believe, that October 7th, I call it the October 8th Jew. Who is the October 8th Jew in the diaspora? You saw a split. You saw Jews. I had Jews I'm very close with that were online, literally the most materialistic. I love them, but they were very materialistic. Everything was this restaurant, this fashion, everything. And all of a sudden they started fighting for their country online. And then you had Jews that said, oh, I'm embarrassed. I want to hide my Judaism and go the other direction. And so there was a bit of a split. I believe that we have to connect with every Jew out there, because the reason that they have gone the other direction is they don't know what it means to be a Jew. And when you don't know and you don't appreciate something, and someone makes a disparaging comment, you're embarrassed and you want to put it aside. So we have to, there was it was on Twitter, online, for me, it was a very powerful picture, maybe one of the most powerful. There was a picture of Chabad students in the middle of a march for Palestine, Palestinian rights, trying to put tefillin on, right? An individual who's marching. And people were like, it's terrible, they're enemies, the whole thing. And I, as Aish, we're two organizations. Sometimes people say Chabad, Aish. I said, I'm supporting my Chabad brothers because I believe that's the right approach. You need to help them put tefillin on. You need to educate them. The only reason they're sitting there and they're protesting Israel and the Jewish people is because they don't know who we are and they don't know who they are. And if you can explain to them, then absolutely, these are our brothers and sisters. We're family. I always say that one of the reasons the struggles people have with the Jews is they don't know what we are. We're not necessarily a nation, a religion, even a race or a creed. We come in all different colors, right? Who are we? Once you understand the Jewish people are family, it all makes sense. Family does not leave family behind, and that has to be our motivator.
So, Shiffy, what do you think young Jews are looking for since the war?
So, what we've found a lot in Aish is that students are coming. There has to be a time where something so big is happening, like such a big knock on the door, that something inside of them is screaming, like some sort of an understanding and a balance of what's going on over here. Like, I'm a Jew, but I live wherever it is I live in the world, and I'm experiencing these things. I'm experiencing the friends on my campus are like suddenly not my friends anymore, and they post things against my religion, my country, and it forces them to stand in front of the mirror and ask those really, really hard questions that I really believe that internally they have their soul is asking those deep questions. And sometimes you can ignore these questions in life because, you know, you just keep going on and life goes on and it's fine. But when something so big happens, they're searching the answers, you know, as Rabbi Burg was saying, how to defend the country, how to defend what's going on social media, the things that are not true, the things that are, they don't know enough, okay? That's on kind of a practical way, but I think that on a deeper spiritual, they're searching for those answers of where do they belong to? Okay, so I was born a Jew, what does that mean? Does that mean just that I was born a Jew and it says it, you know, on my birth certificate, or does it mean something more? Do I have more of a responsibility today? And I found it, like I said before, so many of them want to come and be part of what we're fighting and take it back home. You know, they can't all live here. We would love them to come and live here, but they're taking the information back to campuses, back to their communities, and really using what they've kind of gained from here with, you know, charging their battery and taking it back to where they're living from, and really helping to empower the communities where they come from.
At the same time, there is such growing anti-Semitism on these college campuses in England, in the United States, there, you know, in the UK, or in even all of Europe, in the United States, and, you know, all over the world at this stage, it seems, you know, we keep seeing. And so tell me, you know, as you are speaking to some of these students who are potentially interested in learning more, but what are the challenges then that they're experiencing on their college campuses? Can you describe that? And also, what are some of the, you know, tools that you are then able to give them, not just to get in touch with their own spirituality and learn about their Judaism, but to fight or defend against these challenges?
So I think that there's a few different types of people. There's some people that they want to know the information so that they have kind of like a calmness within themselves, that they have the knowledge, have the intellectual, you know, ideas that we share, you know, in Aish, and they get the answers to the questions that they have. But and I don't think that everyone is the type of person that can stand and fight against their friends on social media. They might not have the knowledge, and that's fine. Not everyone is the same type, but at least that they have that. I always say it's like Judaism is like a muscle. You know, you have to work on that muscle. It doesn't come easily. You have to work on it. You have to build a relationship with God, with the Torah, with the Jewish people. You know, we've just had Yom Kippur. It's a day where we really take the time to really think, have I lived with the purpose that I need to live as a Jew? So it's hard work. It's not an easy thing. You know, it's a beautiful thing and it's a deep thing, but it's something they have to work hard for. And firstly, it's the knowledge. Come and gain the knowledge. Get the information. There's so much out there. You know, I know that for the girls that come to Aish, we learn and there's so many different topics at different levels. You know, it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter how much knowledge you had. It doesn't matter if you ever kept Shabbat or ever lit candles. It doesn't make a difference. You have that neshama, like Rabbi Burg said, we are a family. Then come and get the information. And if you can, then take it back home and fight, then great. And if not, then at least you are a stronger Jew to be able to fight and stand strong against the pressures that are out there.
Do you ever hear from students that once they've come here or they've learned in Israel that they go back and it's worse for them because now they have this connection to Israel and it's, you know, people are in their faith?
It's very interesting because a lot of them come, even if they come for a week, you know, come for a week. Whatever you manage to gain in a week is, I would say, if you can't go to the gym every day or every week, go once a month. Whatever you can do to strengthen yourself. But a lot of them want to come and stay. They want to make, a lot of them have made Aliyah, which is really, really nice.
Incredible.
Yeah, really incredible. People go to the IDF. That's already a whole other level. But the fact that they gain the knowledge and they're stronger, because it's really hard to stand against the pressures out there. It really is difficult. When everyone against you is standing there, your friends on campus, you know, even professors in university are saying things that conflict everything that you believe, that you know that your country hasn't done or did do. It's really difficult to stand strong. So I always say make sure that you strengthen yourself as a person. Firstly, that you can stand straight, and then if you can, then obviously influence people around you and the community and on campus if you can, but definitely you have to take care of yourself.
And I want to turn to you, Rabbi Rowe, you know, to piggyback on that, because clearly, you know, as we mentioned, anti-Semitism is rising everywhere. I want to read something. You have said that Jews face hatred all over the world, but that it isn't Jew hatred, but rather Jew demonization. So what do you mean by that?
Because when you speak to people about anti-Semitism, especially people who are on the critical side, they assume that in a test, am I an anti-Semite or not, is am I a bigot? Do I suffer dislike of the unlike? Right? We know racism against people for their skin colour, for their behaviour, political views. Bigotry exists everywhere. But most people who are the trajectory of anti-Semitism is not Jew bigotry, not bigotry against Jews. It's not Jew hatred. Jew demonization is a pathology where societies need to take the collective Jew and say, you guys are demonic. Your behavior is evil. That's what it is. And that's the pattern of it throughout history. There were probably always bigots who had dislike of the unlike. But when in Europe, let's say, creating blood libel stories, maybe one place somewhere a Jew killed somebody. I'm sure that there were bad Jews and, like everyone else. But then suddenly there's kind of this mass hysteria. Jews are these child killers, right? We've heard that throughout the centuries. There's illness. The Jews have poisoned the wells, right? When Jews were moneylenders, often because they couldn't do anything else, moneylending became the worst crime you could possibly do, right? Then when the Italian banking families took over, nobody hated Jews. Now they hated Italian banking families. No. Now moneylending's what you need to do. Now ghetto people are the worst. So it's always you're the most immoral. And it's probably an attack on the fact that at the core, in both the Jewish, Christian, and Islamic stories, there's a story about the Jews at its epicenter. There's a story about the Jewish role, and I'm not going to get to whole, theology, but somewhere that means that there's almost this societal need to say, you guys are bad, you're evil, you're demonic. And it's being on the receiving end of it. Humans are prepped to go along with society. So the more people scream, the more people will fall in line. And you can scream the most outrageous things. Like start by saying genocide. And here you are 2 years later, 99% of a civilian population is alive in an urban war, like the most opposite of a genocide. And you can still have the average kid on campus go, everyone else said it, it must be true. Our brain starts to fall into line that way. So that's what I mean by Jew demonization. We've seen it before. It's a narrative that will exist no matter what Israel will do. There will always be this there, and here it's just exploding.
So I hate to bring in politics to such a spiritual and important conversation, but I do think then piggybacking on that, we need to speak about Zoran, I can't ever say his name, Mamdani, who is the candidate, as we know, for mayor of New York. It's a very different candidate than we've ever seen, a very scary candidate. Do you have any specific concerns about him, and do you think there are other candidates like him maybe we aren't talking about enough across the U.S., and if so, what do we do when that demonization actually comes part of politics?
So politics will always follow masses. Certainly democratic politics will always follow the crowd. You will get elected people who most eloquently articulate, charismatic people who can absorb the mood of the people. So when the people are shifting in a certain way, the politicians will start to shift that way. And I think, yes, we need to fight and call out anti-Semitism and double standards and all these things, and we can certainly argue whether the State of Israel could have done a better job at it. But at its core, the most important internal message, and I think it's very important for us as people to be aware, yes, we are the most demonized, hated people on planet Earth. We're also the most loved people on planet Earth. And that's not just some kind of, attackers also say, the ethno-narcissism. I can get on an airplane somewhere in the middle of America and someone will come up to me and go, are you part of the Jewish people? Can you give me a blessing? Well. When I speak to my Japanese friends...
No one's ever asked me for a blessing.
Oh, But I speak to friends non-Jewish, they don't get that. So, yes, we get an extreme amount of negativity. We also get an extreme amount of positivity. And I feel that in online dialogue and offline dialogue, even with the Muslim world that's going through a lot of pain over what they see in Gaza, and they have their interpretation. But there's hatred and love. There's just not indifference. And understanding it's uncomfortable when the world's obsessive about you, but it is. The world has an obsession about Jews. And we have to understand that that means we're not going to be treated normally. But that's not all bad. It means there's a spotlight on us, sometimes very uncomfortable. But if we learn a little bit more, what is it within us, whether we like it or not, our ancestry, whatever it may be, who we could be in the future that is generating that spotlight, it can transform the way that we think about it.
Fascinating. Rabbi Burg, I want to turn to you with the same kind of Mamdani question, though, and ask you, are there other candidates that we should be wary of? What should Jews in America be thinking right now?
So, look, I'm born in New York, bred in New York, grew up in New York. I did a lot of lobbying in New York. I'm very, very close to New York. I think Mamdani is one of the biggest problems right now, bar none. I write about it constantly. His approach has been very much to try to split the Jewish people, meaning the Jews support me because I'm with those Jews who aren't really connected to Israel, their Judaism, and he a little bit uses them as a front shield while demonizing the rest of us. And what we're finding from politicians is that they allow the rhetoric to go on. They allow all these things, these demonization of the Jewish people, and then they're shocked when, as happened in Manchester, when they get shot. And the fact that they send David Lammy down there, who had just the day before talked about, all these issues in Palestine, and they basically threw all their rhetoric behind there and rewarded Hamas. And then the next day, everyone's shocked when we get beat up in the streets. And so Mamdani, to me, it's been heading in this direction. We've watched Ilhan Omar, and we've watched AOC, and we've watched it head down this road. But here is a person actually will not condemn, right, the globalized Intifada, right? What do you think it means? Right? We know what it means. We're telling you what it means. No, those are those Jews. But these other Jews, my little Jews here that I'm keeping here, they're backing me on this. And so I think he's horrific. I think he's the biggest danger out there. I believe there will be other Mamdanis out there. And I think the Jewish community, and it is the largest Jewish community outside of Israel. We should not neglect that factor. And they understand it. Even the ultra-Orthodox Hasidim are running the other way because they understand that this man is I would say, true evil. I think he's bad. And I think what he's doing is going to be horrific for the Jewish people. I'm sorry for going overboard, but I'm a New Yorker, and I've watched this my whole life, and I've had relationships with all kinds of politicians, and we've had great relationships, and I really see it, this as being one of the major issues we're going to face in the diaspora.
Do you feel, Rabbi Rowe, that it's possible that we could also somehow flip this to have a positive light? I mean, we see us getting, maligned in the United Nations, maligned by such a number of NGOs and certainly candidates like Rabbi Burg is describing. But is there a way that it could actually be that we could somehow take some of the negativity, flip it, and bring it to shine more positive lights into the world?
I've spoken about this a lot, and I don't know if now is the moment for it or not, but I really think that there's different dimensions to anti-Semitism. One is a very dark, sinister place. A lot of humans, when they suffer their own inner pain in the world, if society kind of launches it at the Jewish people, we become the absorption point of all the dark, twisted things that people are dealing with their own traumas and so on. They throw it on us. But there's another side, which I think is much more positive. And that is, if an alien came down from outer space and wanted to understand what is humanity all about, what's important, and they went to the United Nations where all the world's leaders gather, and they see, what do they talk about? And they look for the last 10 years, long before this war. So there's a few resolutions about global warming, that must be important, a few about famine, a few about real genocides, a few about wars. And then they realize there's one issue that dwarfs everything else. They would say there's this people, the Jewish people in a country somewhere, and there's something wrong. Right? That's it, because 70% of what the world talks about, 70% is Israel. It's like, that's it. That's the only thing that matters. Nothing else on planet Earth matters. That would be the only logical conclusion. So now let's internalize the Jewish people. We want to be normal like everybody else. For better or for worse, the world won't let us be. So let's be excellent. They're effectively saying subconsciously, you are the solution to the world's problems. If you just somehow were different, the world would be safe. The world would be different. So I think, we came back to our homeland after 2,000 years and we just wanted to be normal. For 70 years, we had to fight for our survival, right? More, from 1920 really till now, 100 years. Now let's be something that brings healing to the world. The very first line the Jewish people began with, God says to Abraham, "V'nivrechu v'chakol mishpot ha'adama," through you shall be blessed all families of earth. Imagine if we say, let's come together with all our national differences and let's become a source of blessing for the whole world. That's how to turn into the positive.
So do you believe that religion and maybe not politics then will solve the crisis in the Middle East? Do you think that this vision could be carried through to our own region rather than some 20-point plan? 1,000,000%.
But I wouldn't belittle a 21.
No, I'm not belittling it. I'm just saying,
there is no question in my mind. I've, since October 7th, engaged as much as I can with Muslims and the Muslim community. If you can't be detached from thinking about them, reading what our guys say about them, and what they do the same with us. Talk to them, understand them. And it's so amazing that when God enters the discussion, there's a different conversation. I'm not saying it isn't complex and it isn't difficult, but when they realize the thing we're most obsessed and love the most, which is the idea of one God who loves the whole world, who created the whole world, and they have the same, there's a different dynamic to the conversation. And I was speaking to people who were involved in interfaith work with Israelis and Palestinians at a deep level, pre-Oslo, who were excluded from all the negotiations. And the feeling was, religion causes the problem, the secular will bring the solution, right? And I think religion has such a role to play in the Middle East. We're religious people. The Muslim world, even more than we are, we're becoming it a little bit more, actually. Post-October 7th, I think a lot of Israel's feeling a spirituality. And let's harness this. We can talk to the Arab world, to the Muslim world in a different way. I'm not saying it's the only answer. Politics is important. Military deterrence is really critical. But finding common ground to look at one another as cousins, brothers, as partners is a very important thing.
Amazing. Now, I want to just ask two more questions because we are going to run out of time. But, you know, one of the reactions of Aish to October 7th has been to gain more of a voice in the political sphere in order to help, as Rabbi Rowe is somewhat describing, but also for Jews in the diaspora. Can you explain a little bit more about what's happening with the upcoming World Zionist Congress that's going to happen really right after this event, and explain the role that Aish is playing?
Sure. I mean, we ran a party in the World Zionist Congress for the first time. We have 5 seats there. We already have joined with other parties and coming together. And I think our approach has been very interesting. We have 3 values. One is wisdom, teaching people wisdom, taking responsibility, but love is a major piece of it. And I wrote an op-ed even before the results came out. I said, I want you to know something. Aish will meet with every single party from left to right. And then we'll decide what we're going to do. We're not going to come in with any preconceived notions. And we were very taken aback, about that. But I said, at the end of the day, we need to come together as one people, and we need to figure out. Ronald Reagan said beautifully one day. He said, "The person that I agree with 80% is not 20% my enemy." Right? And the Jews need to know that we agree on so many things. Let's focus on what we agree with. And exactly what Rabbi Rowe was saying is correct. Aish has done so many of these gatherings of Muslims. We've had the Armenian church over. I've taken them to our Beit Midrash where we study and shown it off to them. And I said, first, why are we coming? Because you're our neighbors. And so I think that Aish, in terms of our ability to love and to get involved in politics, and I think what Rabbi Rowe said was exactly right. You can't separate religion from politics in the Middle East. You can't. You can try and do it, but eventually it's going to come back, and you need to have everyone on the same page. I believe that Aish, being involved in understanding on the political sphere, but also understanding the Almighty and the religious sphere, that we can help bridge that gap, and we can take Jews and bring them together, and then also many in the non-Jewish community as well.
Amazing. Now, we only have about 3 minutes, so I want everybody to give really 45-minute answers to this last question, because I want to bring us back to the core of what we're talking about. Here we are at an event looking at, reflecting on 2 years since the tragedy of October 7th. Rabbi Burg, starting with, actually, Shiffy, I want to start with you and work it over if it's okay. What are the next steps for Aish and for the Jewish people now that we are 2 years post that tragedy and since the beginning of this war? Short answer, please.
Okay. So in Aish, in Israel, we have an amazing, beautiful building. We open it with open arms for anyone who is out there who would like to come, even if it's for a week, for a month. Come and learn. As I said before, I really believe in being strong within yourself, get the answers, be okay with the questions that are coming out, and don't be scared to come and find answers, because it's really, really critical. And you don't have to be part of the IDF to fight this cause. You're part of the Jewish people, and as we've said, it's one big family. Come and be part of it.
Amazing. Rabbi Rowe, 30 seconds.
I'd say we have to be a listening ear, because things are going to be happening by themselves. People are organically finding pathways individually and collectively. We have to be a listening ear, willing to adapt and play our role in supporting everybody's journey.
Thank you. And Rabbi Burg.
I think there's nothing strong in the world than the broken heart of a Jew. I think we had our hearts broken, but we came out much stronger, and we need to continue that strength to unify everyone and connect them to the Almighty.
Wow, and with that beautiful final sentiment, as we reflect on this powerful discussion, one message certainly stands out. The resilience of the Jewish spirit is as strong as ever. Through education, faith, and unity, the Jewish people continue to turn pain into purpose and light into legacy. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to our viewers. Have a pleasant evening.